I paid two strangers to like my friend for one night.
Not to sleep with him, not to scam him, to act interested, to sit near him in a bar, ask him ordinary questions, and let the room see him as someone women chose. I told myself it was a nudge, a proof of concept, the kind of hack that gets a shy person over a line. I also knew I was buying a feeling with someone else's money and someone else's heart. Mine, his. My friend is almost 30. I'll call him Len. He's kind and very funny in private. He builds spreadsheets for fun and fixes other people's laptops without the ritual sigh. He has anxiety that sits on his chest like a fat cat. He has depression that steals weekends. He has never dated. Not one official dinner, not one official kiss, not one "I like you" on purpose. He has had crushes that lasted seasons and died quietly without ever becoming sentences. It isn't that women avoid him. He avoids himself around women. He is the person who is wonderful in group chats and silent in rooms. He invites people into a friendship he intends to maintain forever and then watches them pair off with people who take risks he refuses. The pattern hurts to watch. I tried normal help first. I pushed the gym idea, the haircut, the shirts that fit his shoulders instead of his fear. I found a therapist who takes his insurance and sent a calendar link. He went twice, said the office was too bright, and stopped. I made a profile for him on a dating app with photos that tell the truth and still offer hope. He matched rarely. When he did, he froze at the message window like it was the edge of a building. It got worse last winter after his mother went in for a long checkup and stayed longer than anyone liked. He took unpaid time off to shuttle paperwork and cook bland food the internet claims is good for recovery. When she got better, he didn't. He kept sleeping oddly and not answering people until it was late enough that answering would be an apology. Our friends invited him anyway. He said maybe and meant no. The idea came from a mean corner of the internet that thinks human beings are circuits and confidence is a switch. Men like to tell each other that pre-selection is real. People look more attractive when it is obvious someone else already likes them. You can use group dynamics to change how a room evaluates you. I have seen this happen at weddings and concerts. I hated seeing it pitched like a magic trick. And then I wanted to try the magic trick anyway. I wrote a plan in a notebook because a plan feels like ethics if you write it clearly. My rules were simple. No touching, no lies beyond omission, no lines that could not be said by anyone polite. The women I hired would say hello, ask him what he does, laugh at jokes that deserve it, and then leave with a safe excuse when their time block ended. They would not give him a number. They would not accept his. They would not suggest a future. The goal was to let the room see him as an option, and to let him see himself as someone the room might choose. I posted a vague listing on a gig board where people take brand promotion shifts and campus events. I said I needed 2 people comfortable with small talk for an hour in a public place. I put the pay at a rate that says I am not a creep and also not a charity. Replies arrived fast. I chose 2 after video calls. One studied marketing and has worked trade show booths. The other is a barista who does theater and is good at being brave in front of strangers. I showed them a profile of my friend without his name. I explained anxiety that looks like shyness. I gave them the rules and watched their faces as I said no touching, no future promises, no private corners. They asked about safety. I added a safe word. If either said rain check, the trial ended and we walked away. I booked a bar that is loud enough to hide nerves and quiet enough to allow sentences. We chose early evening on a Thursday when people look polished but not dangerous. I asked our group chat to meet there for a small win that I did not define. The win was that I got Len out of his apartment with minimal story. He wore a sweater that fights with his shoulders and good shoes. I treated the night like a small experiment. I mapped where we would sit. I asked the 2 hires to arrive separately 20 minutes apart.
I told them to behave like regular customers who discovered a pleasant conversation and then remembered a train. I gave each the amount in an envelope and a phone photo of it, so there would be no public exchange. I asked them not to order fancy drinks that shout. I asked them to avoid topics that dig holes: parents, trauma, politics, religion. Basic small talk is underrated. It lets nervous systems breathe. I kept my role simple. I would get him through 1 hour. I would keep our group in a position where the two women could join without feeling like plants. I would not dominate the room or telegraph the plan. I would not feed lines. I would not correct him in public or narrate his life like I knew it better than he did. The first woman arrived. She stood near our group at the bar, waiting for the bartender like everyone waits. She looked around the room the way you do when you are deciding whether to commit to a stool. Her eyes passed over me and then stopped at Len because he is tall and holds the air in a way that says he thinks he does not deserve it. She asked if the seat was free. He said, yes, of course, and folded his shoulders inside his sweater. She asked what people were drinking and where the good fries live. She asked if the bartender was any good at mocktails. She said something about the music being 10 years behind in a comforting way. He started to breathe like a person and not like a student in front of a class. The room did what rooms do. It registered an ordinary moment and made of it a story. 2 other women looked over. A man at the far end slid his jacket off to show better shoulders. Our friend smiled because smiling is what you do when a wall opens. Len told a short version of his job that does not mention spreadsheets. He used his first joke too early and then used another, and it landed better. He was not different. He had witnesses that gave him permission to be himself out of sequence. 20 minutes later, the second woman arrived and sat on his other side because I had asked her to do exactly that if the first seat remained clear. The move mattered. It made him the center of a tiny world. It gave our table a shape that tells a room, this person matters to 2 people right now. He turned to include them both. His body remembered he has shoulders. He gestured open-palmed like he had seen confident people do, and not like he had practiced in front of a mirror. Other people looked twice. It was working, in the way that plans work when you are sober enough to be ashamed. I should say this clearly. The 2 women were kind. They asked him about hobbies like they actually wanted to know about someone who builds a custom keyboard on the weekend. They did not fake laughter. They waited for the second joke that deserved it. They did not touch his arm or sit on the edge of the stool as if trying to fall into him. They behaved like people in a city behave when the bar is not dangerous and a Thursday is not lonely. In that small field, he became visible. I watched him lift. The group dynamic shifted. 2 women at the other end of the table asked him about the fries and then about where he grew up, which is the ordinary way strangers admit they want to know you. He answered the easy version and then the real version without apology. He reached for his water like a person who believes the glass is for him and not for everyone else. At the 40-minute mark, I gave the signal to the first woman. She said a line we had scripted. She had to meet a friend across town who leaves early. She thanked him for the good conversation. She took her drink. She did not touch him. She left. The second woman stayed 10 minutes past her mark because she was actually interested in the keyboard story. Then she used her own line. Early shift, tomorrow, thanks for talking. She left. The room exhaled and refilled. The table shape returned to our usual. The afterimage of him at the center remained. That mattered.
After they left, something good happened that was not in the plan. A woman from another group sat near our end and asked if anyone was using the outlet. He moved his glass to give her space without the clumsy hurry I associate with his nerves. He answered her small question and then one more. He let the conversation end naturally when she opened her laptop. He did not bleed need onto the table. He looked like a person who can start and stop a sentence without losing a day. I wanted to end the experiment there. Good result, small win, leave before greed writes another scene. But a plan is a poor match for loneliness. Our friends were happy for him. He was happy for himself in a way he does not allow. He stayed longer. He bought a second round for the table because the moment was big enough to tolerate a receipt. On the way out, I felt 2 things at once. Relief that it worked, disgust that I did it. I had used money to buy people to move a feeling inside a friend who trusts me. I told myself I had purchased a mirror, not a lie. I told myself the women did a professional job with rules that kept harm down. I also told myself a true thing I did not want. If he found out, it would hurt him worse than the last 5 quiet years. I decided the experiment was one time only. I would check in on him and watch the lift last or fade. I would not repeat the trick. I would help in honest ways. Text him at lunch. Invite him to things. Sit through the first therapy intake in the waiting room like a human seatbelt. I promised myself I would not try to engineer confidence again. I wrote that sentence on a page and underlined it twice. The lift lasted 3 days. On day 4, he asked if I knew the name of the second woman at the bar. He did not say why. He did not have to. He had a small smile he had not used since we were 19, and both wrong about forever. I asked why he wanted her name. He said he thought they had a moment. He said he wanted to thank her for the conversation and the way she listened about keyboards. He said he did not ask then because he did not want to seem weird. The plan had worked. The plan had also opened a door I never meant him to see. I said I didn't know her name. That was true, I only knew her handle and the name on her payment app. He said it was fine, maybe he'd see her again at the bar. He said maybe he'd go back Thursday. He did not know that there is no chance she would be there. She was scheduled for a campus event across town at that hour. He did not know that she had obeyed the rules I wrote and left before he could hand her his number. He did not know there were rules. I left the call and stared at my notebook. I had bought a mirror and put it in front of a person who was thirsty. He wanted to drink. I had nothing to give him but another lie or the truth. The truth would knock him down. The lie would keep him walking toward a night that does not exist. I did what cowards do when both options hurt. I waited. He went back to the bar the next Thursday. He did not find her. He sent me a picture of fries and a caption that said the music was better and the bartender was generous. I told him I was glad. The word tasted like paper. 2 days later, he texted a question I could not ignore. He asked whether I had ever hired anyone for a work event through a gig site. He asked for advice. He said he had a small idea for a surprise for a friend. He did not include a tone. Anxiety writes messages without adjectives. I called him. He asked straight, did I know anything about paid conversation gigs? He had Googled and discovered a world where companies hire people to make rooms look busy, where startups pay for lines on purpose, where product demos are social theater. He said maybe bars did that too. He said maybe the 2 women who talked to him were part of something like that. His voice did not accuse. It organized facts. I told him the truth in a soft shape. I said places sometimes hire people to move attention. I said I did not think the bar did. I did not answer the deeper question, the question under the internet, the one with my name on it. By then, the line between help and harm was thin enough to cut skin. I had 12 hours to decide whether to own what I did or wait and hope the moment cooled. I used 9. In those 9 hours, he wrote a message to the woman's payment app handle because he had seen her name on the Wi-Fi sign-in that the bar leaves open for too long. He wrote that he enjoyed talking and hoped she had a good week. He did not ask to meet. He said thank you. He pressed send with a heart he thought was subtle. She wrote back in the morning. She kept to the truth better than I had. She said she was hired to do conversation at a bar for an hour. She said there were clear boundaries and no numbers exchanged. She said she enjoyed hearing about his keyboard and hoped he had a good night. She did not mention me. She did not have to. He knew then that someone had placed her there. He knew which friend chooses plans and writes notebooks. He called. He didn't yell. He asked how much I paid.
I told him. He said one sentence I will hear for a long time. He said, without heat, that the first time a woman sat on both sides of him, it was because I opened my wallet, not because he deserved it. He said it made sense. He said it shouldn't. He hung up. That was the end of the experiment. It was not the end of the story. The receipt showed up in 3 places at once: in his payment app history, where the handle matched the woman's reply; in my notebook, where the rules look neat and moral when you don't picture a face; and in the silence that follows a simple betrayal. I have done worse things in my life. I have not done many that felt cheaper.
The day after he found out, Len stopped answering me. Our chat with other friends kept going because groups move the way rivers do. They find other banks when one collapses. He replied in there with a thumbs up to a meme because a thumbs up is a way to say I am alive without saying we are not okay. He stopped coming to the bar. He stopped answering invitations that use his name. When I sent a long apology that used real words and not the app's blue reactions, I got the gray "seen" and no reply. I don't blame him for choosing silence. Angry people talk to the wrong part of you. Silent people take your mirror away and make you look at yourself. I did not chase him into the apartment he hates. I did not knock. I did not show up with a pizza and a speech. I waited. Waiting is often the cheapest thing we call respect. It can also be a way to make the other person do the work. He did something I did not expect. He went back to therapy, not with the Too Bright office, with a different clinic that does evening sessions in rooms that look like classrooms and not like a living room from a magazine. He found them without me. He told a mutual friend, not me, that he was tired of being the person who never starts. He said the bar night made him feel like a character instead of a human. He said he wanted to be a human. The friend who told me added a warning I deserved. This is not your redemption arc. I don't get to narrate his sessions. I know pieces that reach the group chat in small comments that sound like sentences from someone who reads handouts carefully. He wrote about rules he obeys because they protect him, and rules he obeys because they protect nothing. He practiced tolerating being seen. He practiced small asks. He set a goal that sounded tiny and turned his life. Say yes to coffee if invited, once a month, regardless of mood. Boundaries are not always fences. Sometimes they are calendar events. While he did that, the other woman from the bar wrote me a short message through the gig site. It was clean and professional. She thanked me for clear rules and safe conditions. Then she added a paragraph that changed the way I talk about this topic. She said she does promo work because it pays better than retail and gives predictable hours. She said she likes ordinary conversation. She said she does not like being deployed as a proof of male value. She said, if I ever hire for a similar job again, I should hire them to make the group comfortable, not a single man look chosen. She said there is a difference, and men who don't know it often pay anyway. I sent her a thank you and paid an extra hour that she did not ask for. It didn't fix anything. It did place a small stone on the side that says, I am learning. Time moved. The group saw him at a board game night 6 weeks later. He arrived late with a bag of chips that cut the tape off his budget and said, I am here. He talked to 2 people he does not normally talk to. He learned the rules fast and won by accident in a way that looked like luck and not design. He left early without apology. The next week he came again and stayed longer. He looked like a person building a ladder one rung at a time. He looked like a person climbing it without turning to check who is watching.
I kept my distance, the way you keep your hands off a healing cut. We exchanged 3 messages in 2 months. 2 were logistical. Can you bring the HDMI cable? Can you pick up paper plates? 1 was a plain, hope your mom's appointment went okay. He said, thank you. That was all. I wanted to send an essay about how the plan was supposed to help and why it failed. I did not. Essay is a way of asking the other person to grade you. He does not work for me.
When he finally agreed to meet, he chose a park. He chose noon. He chose a public bench where conversations are shorter because benches do not invite 3-hour downloads. He sat like a person with the list. He kept his hands on his knees like a person who sensed I might try to hand him a story and wanted to be busy. He said what he needed to say. He said he understood the theory. He said social proof is a thing, and he had read the old studies a guy in a podcast thinks he discovered. He said he gets why I reached for a lever when normal help did not move anything. He said none of that matters because I bought people to pretend to want him. He said this changes the way he sees every past kindness I paid for. He said next time he does a nice thing for me and I try to repay it with a bigger thing, he will refuse. He said he wants our friendship to be smaller and cleaner or not happen. I agreed to smaller and cleaner. I offered a very boring amends. I'd pay for his next 4 therapy sessions and then stop paying for anything that touches his social life. He said no. He said if he let me fund therapy, it would crawl back under the same shame. He said he could do one thing. I could send him the original rules I wrote for the bar night so he could show his therapist the way my head works when I'm trying to help. He said he wanted the paper because it would be easier than trying to remember my sentences. I sent the rules. Reading them as a document that belongs to a clinician instead of a friend made me wince. They are careful and still wrong. They keep harm down and still don't protect the only thing that matters: a person's right to choose what kind of story he is in. Spring arrived in soft weather disguised as rain. We saw him at more things. He did not avoid the bar. He did not sit where the 2 women had sat. He stood near the front for 5 minutes and then chose a high table in the back where he could watch the door without making the door his only view. He typed on his phone for a long time and then put the phone down without telling anyone what he wrote. He is allowed to keep things now. He met someone at a climbing gym, not because of me. A friend of a friend. They spotted each other on an easy route and moved up together. They got coffee twice, then dinner once, then a walk that endured sudden weather without a dramatic run to the parking lot. He told us about it after the 4th hang with a sentence that had no exclamation point and still sounded like one. He did not ask for advice. He did not ask whether he should tell her about his dating history. He said he would talk about therapy first and then everything else later if later happened. He sounded like a person who intends to stay a person. I asked his permission before I wrote this. I asked because even anonymous stories are real. He said yes if I did 2 things. First, I had to admit that social proof works, which is why this story is dangerous. Second, I had to write exactly what it costs when the receipt shows up. Here is what it cost. He lost a month of trust in me. He lost his first uncomplicated bar memory. He lost the little film he had been living inside, where the night 2 women sat by him was a night the city finally saw him. He gained some things too. He gained a reason to treat his life as a thing he can study and adjust. He gained a version of our friendship that is small enough to be real. He gained story rights. I ask him before I talk to others about him now.
As for me, I gained a rule I should have had at 20 and wrote at 32. If a plan uses another person's body to change someone's heart, don't. If a plan buys attention, It also buys a receipt that will arrive the second someone needs it least. If a plan works by hiding your help, it will end by hiding your face. I still think confidence can be trained. I still think rooms can be tuned so quiet people get a fair chance. I now believe the only honest way to do it is to change the room, not hire actors. You can bring 2 more friends who are good at holding silence. You can choose a table that faces the door so nerves have an exit. You can go early when the music is a human volume. You can leave when the night asks too much. He is not fixed. People are not broken or fixed. He is learning how to start. He is learning how to stop. He is learning how to be liked without buying proof from a stranger. The last time we hung out, he put an extra napkin under a sweating glass without announcing the kindness. He looked at his watch and left before the social fatigue hit. He texted later that the evening was a good length. He did not thank me for planning anything, because I didn't. That is the best thing I have done for him this year. I wrote the rule on a card and taped it inside my notebook. Change the room. Don't hire the feeling. The first time we tried to change the room in a way that didn't purchase people, we failed. Failure here looked like a simple thing. We picked the wrong table. It was a birthday for someone who loves noisy places because he grew up in loud kitchens. We booked a spot at a pub with brick walls that bounce sound back like applause. The host gave us a table that faced a TV that refused to show closed captions and refused to be quiet. Lynn arrived on time and sat at the corner with the TV in his peripheral vision and the kitchen bell like a small hammer behind his ear. He lasted 20 minutes, smiled through 3 interruptions, and left with a sentence about an early morning. No one was rude. The room was wrong. Anxiety is not a dragon you kill with a sword. It is a smoke detector you move away from ovens. We adjusted. We started favoring places with carpets, corners, and obvious exits. We arrived early and asked for tables where the first person to arrive doesn't have to choose between guarding coats and guarding themselves. We put 2 people who like talking to strangers on either side of him so he could pause without losing the room. We stopped pretending that volume is an accident we can tolerate and treated it like weather. If the weather was bad, we moved. You can do a lot for a friend by pretending the world is adjustable. It isn't always, but the places that are count. He and the climber kept seeing each other. It moved like adults with jobs. Slow, then faster, then slow again when one of them had a deadline and the other had a family thing with fluorescent lighting and folding chairs. I did not meet her for months. That was their choice. They kept their circles small. He told me small things he could share. They texted about routes and wrists and a chalk brand one of them swears by. They compared favorite scenes in movies that have too much running. They both liked walking outside the climbing gym because the air there smelled like a bakery and a car wash had been arguing for years. The first time I met her, she waved with a hand that looked like it knows what to do on a wall. She had steady eyes and a practical jacket. She said she knew me from the group chat icons and not from stories, which was kind and true. She did not act like a person who had been briefed on a past experiment. I noted that and filed it under the drawer labeled, "Don't ruin the progress by narrating it."
He learned that dating can be boring in a good way. Some nights they watched videos of climbing in places that make knees cold. Some nights they traded clips of comics telling jokes that are almost clean. One afternoon they failed to make tofu taste like they wanted and ate it anyway with a lot of soy sauce. He told me an unremarkable thing that sounded like a promotion. They sat in the same room and read. They texted each other from 2 meters away because the joke was funnier that way. He sounded like a person who does not need a bar to feel seen. I still had to do my amends work. Apologies are events. Amends are habits.
I practiced not paying for things unless asked and always offering cash openly if I did. I practiced leaving early without making him the reason. I practiced asking what the plan was instead of writing it. My friends teased me about the recovery language, and they were right to. It helped anyway. One night, he asked a group of us to try a board game at his apartment. He does not host. He is allergic to crumbs and scared of his own couch in a way that makes less sense than it feels. He had vacuumed too much and arranged chairs like he was seating a small court. He had a rule sheet printed, he had water in the fridge and cups stacked like a pyramid. He let people bring outside snacks and did not flinch when someone dropped salt on the rug. He made a clean joke about the drop. He lost the game by a lot and didn't redo the math to find a way he almost won. He looked like someone who has stopped trying to control outcomes and started controlling inputs. The second attempt to change the room went better because we believed we could adjust variables that don't look like social life. We picked a cinema with assigned seats, so the anxiety of finding a spot cannot steal the first 10 minutes. We picked the row with the aisle, so the exit is there even when you don't need it. We arrived early enough to sit before the trailers, so the brain doesn't have to process strangers standing near your knees. We ate afterwards at a place with soft lighting and big menus where water arrives without asking. He chose the table this time. He chose the corner that made sense. He told a story about a spreadsheet that compares flower brands like cars. We nodded because flower is boring until a person you like talks about it. The woman from the bar, the first one, wrote me months later. She had stumbled onto my message thread because her app suggested old contacts. She wished me well. She asked if the man from the bar was okay. Not nosy, just human. I told her the truth she is allowed to know. He is climbing, he is reading, he is learning. She sent one line back that I taped into the notebook. Good, it said. Real timelines are slower and cheaper. I asked Len whether I could send her a thank you by name for her kindness. He said yes, if the note was small. I sent an electronic gift card for a coffee place and wrote 7 words. Thank you for being careful that night. She replied with a thumbs up and a latte thoner. That was the correct size. Then the social proof theory came back around not as an argument, but as a life fact. We all went to a wedding out of town where the bride is one of those magnets the world grows in certain families. The reception had circles that open and close like anemones. People watch who people watch. He and the climber walked in together, and because she is clearly choosing him, other people looked at him kindly. They introduced themselves. He did not shrink. He answered questions like a person who had practiced answers at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday and not at midnight in a bar. Social proof still works. The difference was that no one bought it. It was earned. It made me mad at my past self and happy for my present friend at the same time. Not everything smoothed. He had a flight of anxiety after a week of too many events. He canceled a Saturday plan that mattered to her. He apologized badly. He learned to apologize in a way that isn't a report about his feelings, but a plan for the next time. He learned to say, I overbooked and will leave earlier on Fridays, instead of, I am a broken person and you deserve someone else. She responded with a sentence that sits on my desk now. Schedules are kinder than promises.
The last piece of this part is the thing I was most afraid of. He told her about the bar night, not as a test, as a fact about a past he won't hide. He said a friend hired 2 women to talk to him once. He said the women were kind and careful. He said it helped for an hour and hurt for a month. He said he is not mad every day. He said he is not proud of what happened next, which was nothing for a while. He said he is trying to keep his life free of stunts. She listened. She said that sounded human. She did not ask my name. He did not offer it. I don't know if she knows this story belongs to me. I hope it doesn't need to. I thought about writing to him to say thank you for not making me the villain in an origin story. I didn't. I put the notebook away and bought a cheap timer for my kitchen. Not for cooking, for leaving.
I set it for 90 minutes when I go to his place so I don't overstay. You don't fix a friendship with grand gestures. You fixed it with timers and exits and clean cash and no lectures. The rule holds. Change the room, don't hire the feeling. I used to think stories needed a clean ending. I like receipts in folders and cards in sleeves. I like paid stamped in red on envelopes. This one refuses. It keeps opening tabs quietly and asking me to look at them. One tab is the money. I spent $300 to stage an hour. It bought a moment and a wreck. If I had put the money into groceries and time, we might have gotten a different hour honestly. I can't retroactively fund kindness. I can only fund next month's boring things. Sometimes I buy pizza for the game night and say it out loud. I'm paying because I want pizza, not because anyone owes me. It's a little ridiculous, and it makes the room honest. Another tab is the rule about changing rooms. It scales better than I expected. We used it at a friend's birthday with a cousin who hates crowded bars. We moved the party to a park at noon. 4 people left early to put their kids down. Nobody yelled about it. The birthday person said it was the best. We used it at a museum. Anxiety lives in lines. We bought tickets for the first slot and stood where the line asks least. The day felt possible. It is not old wisdom. It is practical. It is the kind of help that does not require a secret. A third tab is the 2 women from the bar. I have a list now for hiring people. Only hire for tasks you describe to your grandmother. Only hire for group comfort. Never hire humans to move a friend's reputation. If someone asks me to do what I did, I say no and hand them the line the barista sent me. Make the group comfortable, not the man look chosen. They don't like it. They also stop asking. The tab that hurts is the friendship. We are not as close as we were. That is fair. Proximity is something you earn with years of not making other people's problems your project. We see each other weekly now because of the group, and monthly on purpose. We sit on benches because benches end. We share small weather. We do not autopsy the past every time we meet. The past is heavy enough without us picking at it. He and the climber keep going. I like that sentence. It doesn't need adverbs. They negotiated a trip that isn't flashy and happens 3 months from now and includes a rental car with a dent and a motel where the ice machine is the loudest thing on site. They are planning around noise and exits and snacks because that is love when you live in a body that startles. I cannot believe it took me 30 decades to learn that love looks boring in the best way. He sometimes sends me photos. Doors. Frames. Once a doorway cut into a climbing wall for no reason except someone wanted to make the gym look like a house. He writes 2 words under those photos. Good room. He is not wrong.
I thought a lot about the urge that made me pay strangers to talk to him. It came from a generous place and a selfish one. I was tired of feeling helpless. I wanted a success story I could tell myself about being a useful friend. I wanted the shortcut to prove that the long cut could exist. The shortcut exists. It stains the long cut. There are parts of the night that still feel good when I let myself remember them. The easy way his shoulders dropped. The way the room looked at him after someone else made the first choice. The way he offered his glass to make space for a stranger's outlet. Those are real. The price is real too. I keep them both. I don't try to edit. The part that still bites is the line he said, that the first time 2 women sat alongside him, it was because I opened my wallet. He had to say it to own it. I had to hear it to stop pretending I was the kind of friend who only builds ladders. I also build stages. I'm trying to retire from that trade. If you want a moral, I don't recommend mine. It arrived late and cost too much. If you need one anyway, use this. Move chairs, not people. Turn down music instead of turning up pressure. Pay for coffee and be explicit about why. Because coffee helps brains talk, not because someone owes you a life. Help your friend practice leaving early. Practice showing up. Practice being the least interesting person in the room so someone else can breathe.
He asked me last week whether I'd go to the climbing gym some morning. Not to climb, to bring coffee and watch. He said they have a couch. He said it's boring in a good way. He said I can leave any time. I said yes and asked what time. He said 8. I set the kitchen timer for the night before so I wouldn't be late. I put a note in my wallet that says cash for chalk because I still overcorrect and forget that paying can be normal when it's for dust and not for proof. At the gym, the music was wrong for my age and right for theirs. People fell in safe ways and laughed in the same pattern. He looked different than he used to, not because his body changed, but because he knows where to stand. He looks like a person who can be chosen without anyone running a script. He looks like a person who can choose. We sat on the couch and didn't talk much. I left when the timer in my head buzzed. On the way out, I bought a box of the chalk he likes and left it at the desk for the tall guy who reads the route map twice. The clerk said there are 15 tall guys. I said the one with the neat hair. The clerk said there are 6 of those. I said the one with the careful laugh. He nodded like he knew. Maybe he did. I walked to the car and felt the old urge to write an ending that sounds like a thesis. I didn't. This story is real life, not a lesson. It has a start that is embarrassing, and a middle that is useful, and an end that gets written again next week when 2 people decide whether to meet on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll keep the rule. Change the room. Don't hire the feeling. And I'll keep the other one that took me too long to see. Boring is the treatment. The receipt is filed. The friendship is smaller and clean. The door we broke is now a frame. He walks through it. I stand to the side where friends are supposed to stand.